agenda is item number 4, and that is approval and or correction of minutes of the prior meetings. You have 4.1, which is the regular board meeting from June the 24th, 2024. 4.2, special called meeting July the 10th, 2024. And 4.3, special called meeting July the 11th of 2024. I'm assuming everyone's had a chance to look over those, and if you did have any corrections to be made. Have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Call the roll, please.
Brad Ellis.
Yes.
Roger Lofton.
Yes.
Tim Rhodes.
Yes.
Jimmy White.
Yes.
Gordon Wildred.
Yes.
Gabe Williams.
Yes.
Sandra Wood.
Yes. Okay, number 5 on the agenda is comments from the mayor. As you can tell, the mayor's not here tonight. He is attending the Tennessee Municipal League Conference in Knoxville. That is a yearly conference that is held for all cities across the state. And also I'd like to let you know, which I'm sure most of you do know, that next Monday night on July the 29th at 6 p.m. there will be a public hearing to vote on the second reading of the 24-25 budget. At that time, before a vote is taken, anyone in the audience that would like to make comments or state their case, you'll have the opportunity to do that. Nothing else, we'll move on to number 6, which is unfinished business, and that is 6.1, the utility workshop meetings and committees/committee chairs. Alderman Wildridge, I think that was you. We tabled that twice. Do we want to do anything about that? Okay, are we gonna? You want to table it again, or are we going to drop it? Okay, it's going to drop that. Next item on the agenda is new business, which is 7.1, is discuss and approve the street closure for the VFW car show that is going to be on September the 2nd, 2024, which is Labor Day. Mr. Dangler, are you in the audience anywhere? Jimmy, do you know about that? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And my understanding is they want to do the road closure on Natchez Trace, Main, and Monroe. Is that correct?
Right.
And Mallory, they have done the paperwork. Everything is okay with that?
They have, and they're going to have one food truck that's supplied by them, and they'll be working it themselves.
Okay. I need a motion to approve that.
So made. Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Roger Lofton.
Yes.
Tim Rhodes.
Yes.
Jimmy White.
Yes.
Gordon Wildred.
Yes.
Gabe Williams.
Yes.
Sandra Wood.
Yes.
Brad Ellis.
Yes.
Next item is 7.2, is discuss and approve Industrial Development Board appointment. At the present time, Jeff Lewis was on that, and he has retired and is relocating, and the mayor is recommending Mr. Jeremy Washburn for that position. That is something the board has to vote on. The mayor does not have the discretion to appoint that.
Motion to appoint Jeremy Washington.
Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Tim Rhodes.
Yes.
Jimmy White.
Yes.
Gordon Wildred.
Yes.
Gabe Williams.
Yes.
Sandra Wood.
Yes.
Brad Ellis.
Yes.
Roger Lofton.
Next item is 7.3, is discuss and approve the executing contract for Silicon Ranch. I think that's Mr. Jones, and I'm sorry, but I forgot your name.
Matt Brown.
I'm sorry. So before we get started, if I'm doing this, understanding this right, Silicon Ranch has agreed or doesn't mind being annexed into the city. Is that correct? Or is that right?
I've spoken to him about that, and he's done his due diligence on his side to look into that as well. And so I'll let him speak on that if he wants to. But just to get started, ultimately, what I'm asking for is approval from the board to proceed with executing the contracts to move forward with the solar project, which is located out on Timberlake Wallersville Road. Matt Brown came a couple months ago. I'm sure y'all remember him coming here, and he presented all the details about what the project looks like and you know what it'll entail. It'll be a good thing for the electric system. It has the potential for about $380,000 a year in savings on power cost. So it's a good benefit for us. I've been in talks a lot with Matt about this, and I feel comfortable with it. So it would be my recommendation to move forward with it. But Matt's come again tonight. He's here to answer any remaining questions that the board may have about it. So
I think that we did put it on hold because the mayor was not here at the time you were, but I do believe he has met and has seen the presentation that you had and all that, so.
yeah, me and the mayor and Matt, we all met together, and he was able to talk to him as well. So that's pretty.
I'm glad to address any questions or just give a high-level overview. Does that sound okay?
I think some of the board may have some questions for you, so.
For sure. Well, first off, thank you for having me. Appreciate all of your attention and the opportunity to speak to you. So this is, we're Silicon Ranch. We're from Nashville, Tennessee. We're a solar energy developer, owner, operator. So we finance 100% of these projects, and we own and operate them for the lifespan of the facilities. And this is part of the LPC flexibility program that TVA has offered a couple of years ago. And so it gives local power companies, local utilities like municipals and cooperatives the opportunity to save money on your wholesale power bill, and thus having rate stabilization, but also helping your customers save money as well. And so we're excited about this opportunity. We had purchased the 155 acres end of last year. And, you know, as Brad mentioned, it's over there on Timberlake Road across from the substation, the Crockett substation. And so our request, I think the request here tonight is for the execution to move forward with two different contracts. One we call a PPA, or a power purchase agreement, which is a 30-year agreement for us to sell Lexington electric system power cheaper from day one. Solar, clean, renewable power, local in the community, cheaper than what TVA provides power to you at today. And that's a fixed price for 30 years. If I could buy a loaf of bread and buy that every day for 30 years and the price didn't go up, that would be awesome. I'm sorry, you have a question?
I do have a question. You just said 30 years?
Yes, sir.
On Article 2 here, it says 40 years. Or is that something?
Is that the interconnection agreement, perhaps? Because there's two agreements. The power purchase agreement's for 30 years. And I could explain the difference in the terms.
So the interconnection is after 40 years, it goes year to year?
Correct. The interconnection agreement, we're not selling you power. The power purchase agreement, we're selling you power at a fixed rate. The interconnection agreement, we pay for 100% of the upgrades. There's no capital expense on the city or the utility system. We pay for all of that, all the services, the installation, all the equipment. So past that 30 years, so why is there a gap between 40 or year to year? It's a common question that we're asked. And so the difference is we own the land. We want to be long-term corporate citizens and be good stewards and taxpayers, which I think we'll talk about in a second. But we also have, as long as we have interconnection access to the grid here in Lexington, we could renegotiate after that 30-year period, depending on what the world looks like at that point, to continue to sell power to Lexington, or we could sell it to TVA at an established rate at that point. So the interconnection is a key component. That's why those agreements are typically longer.
And it's only for year to year?
It could be renewed year to year.
No long-term, like a renewal, 5-year, 10-year, another 20-year, year to year?
That's year to year, sir. Sorry. But yeah, this is the equivalent of about 750 to 1,000 homes per year energy usage, just to kind of like set the mindset of how much energy we're talking about generating per year. And the savings, as Brad mentioned, conservatively, and I'm talking very conservatively, because we've done 45 of these projects where we've either contracted. We have about 10 operational in the Tennessee Valley right now. So we always undersell, underpromise, overdeliver. And right now, I did an engineering model 10 o'clock last night. It's about $380,000 off your TVA wholesale bill from what we would charge you versus what they would charge you with the energy and the demand savings. That's year one. So TVA rates, unfortunately, just like everything else, inflation, they're only going to go one way. I think there's another rate increase that's proposed. I've heard another 5.25% coming up in October. And so this locks you into a price long-term for 30 years of clean local energy. And over 30 years, I can only guess that the TVA rates are only going to increase. So that 380 doesn't even include any of that escalating inflation, any of those rates. We should be up and running, if approved, by the end of 2025. Conservatively, and I got an exact date, I'm not going to promise an exact date, but I got an exact date earlier this week, or end of last week, I should say, October 24th, 2025, but our contractual commitment to you as proposed is December 31st, 2025, just to make sure that we have all the testing, commissioning, and safety and all that worked out. But we anticipate being online before the holidays in next year, if granted. So again, there's lots of energy resiliency benefits. We don't anticipate having sheep or livestock grazing out to mow the lawn, so to speak, from the get-go. We do anticipate having those over a few years as we grow our herd. We have over 3,000 sheep across 17 states, so anyone in the audience, I've already talked to a few that have sheep or cattle. We're actually working on a cattle program as well, where they just go through the rows and they help mow the lawn. So we keep the land in agriculture, which is pretty exciting as well. This is over a $15 million investment in the Lexington community, which we're very excited about, and we will be a part of for the long haul. Vice Mayor, you mentioned to Brad when he was up here about annexing the property. That question has been posed. I've seen there's interest from the Alderman and the board for that, so I investigated it. Right now, the property is just adjacent to the city property there. It's in county property. We are able, glad to announce, to annex it to the city. We asked as a concession, a slight concession, just because the schedule and the county and planning and the city process that we do that post-construction, so end of next year. We're glad to sign a binding letter of intent, some kind of commitment, so that it's not just my word to you all. It's actually legally eased up for sure. But we are willing to do that. But we just ask to not impede the timeline for us to deliver those savings to you. That we can do that post-construction, where we actually go through the formal annexation process. Lots of other details, but glad to address any questions that you all have.
I think that would be reasonable. So you started. How is that going?
One question. Out of the $15 million cost, I'm sure y'all you have your own construction or contractors that you use, or any local contractors used for any portion of that $15 million.
Because we are a Tennessee-based company, and our founders were a former governor and a former economic development commissioner, we put a very high emphasis on so we don't turn wrenches technically at our company. We have 350 employees, but we're a whole bunch of project managers. So we would sub this out, I believe, be one of 4 to 5 contractors, which is why the timeline's critical, so we can contract with them in the year and get them mobilized. Some late October to November this year. We put a very high emphasis into them when they don't have them on staff to actually hire locally. We can work with the city if there are electricians or just labor trades folks who are looking for work. Again, it's not a long-term position. I want to be clear and transparent about that. It's a construction job, right, for 6, 8, 9 months. But yes, we do work with every community that we work in to put a high emphasis on that. So for a project of this size, we're probably talking about 100 staff that would be actively working on a project at any point in time. But if whether it's community colleges or anyone, we can work on hiring fairs, job fairs, all that good stuff at the appropriate time.
And how many acres is it?
The entire property that we purchased is 155. So this is 6.5 megawatts AC. Sorry, I'm talking electrical, which is about 9, a little over 9. So we're using it probably about 100 to 120 acres of it.
So what is the longest you guys have been active in any community in Tennessee?
Our company was founded in 2011, and one of our very first projects in Tennessee has been Chattanooga. We actually serve the Volkswagen manufacturing plant there.
So what are I haven't heard anything about this since the last meeting we were at, so 30 years is a long time to me. So maintaining the property and the visibility of it and the people that live around there is probably my biggest concern. I'm all about saving some money, but with that said, is there going to be any commitments from you guys? I know they've made fun about the sheep grazing, but to me, that's personally not good enough. If we need to know exactly what's going to happen from a maintenance standpoint and a visibility standpoint for the project at a full 30-year term.
Very fair question. So we own every single project that we develop. We've never sold a project in our entire company's history. We're very unique that way. All of our competitors either they get to this point and then tomorrow or a week or 2 months later they sell it to a faceless bank that does not care about this community. That's very common in this industry. We've never done that. That being said, we have from a safety perspective, so we have sensors, we go through the whole electrical permitting, all of that good stuff. I get calls on occasion. We have 160, 170 plants that are operating across the country. So occasionally I'll get a call and say, hey, so-and-so neighbor, we don't have the right vegetative buffer, and we follow all the county planning, all the rules of the road, but we want to make this a positive experience and be a good neighbor because we're going to be here for 30 years. And so that being said, I get the calls about, hey, the grass is 2 feet high. Well, it's not going to look like a golf course, right? It's different. We actually like it to germinate and reseed itself a little bit, but we're not going to have grass as tall as this podium. And if we do, someone calls me and we mobilize a team. We have 20 to 25 folks that actually manage our sites day to day across the country in different regions. And so we have a standard operating procedure, who to call, how often we mow. We generally mow, southeast is a little bit more, but we generally mow or have sheep out grazing all the time, but it's about 4 to 5 times a year. But when there's a problem, I'm not going to say call the Ghostbusters to be cheesy, but we're very receptive and attentive to that. But we're also very, I did want to mention one other thing, kind of tackling both your comments and questions. We're very involved in economic and community development and education, working with high schools, local, tech colleges, anything and everything in between, middle schools, doing tours. We do a lot of financial support, with sponsoring events, local events. things of that nature. So it's very incumbent upon us to maintain these sites, but also be a part of the whole part of the community for sure. And frankly, if we have grass growing up, then it's shading our solar panels, and it's in our best, even just financial interest, to make sure that doesn't happen, because that's revenue. So does that help?
But there's no commitment, though. There's not like in the 30-year contract, I guess, back to the annexing the city, I hadn't heard or had a chance to ask questions about that, but if we were involved in the construction phase to kind of know what was going to be, how it's going to be built, and then also in part of the contract, what are the maintenance, expectations? Is there any kind of agreement going to be in place for that? That's kind of where I went back to Chattanooga and any of the other communities. Is there anything in place that puts some ink behind what you're saying to keep it at a minimal?
Sure. I'm not aware of any formal agreement. We do have a standing operating procedure that does include vegetation management and ongoing operations and maintenance, and I'm glad to provide that to Brad and the team. So.
Okay, and I think the other question from last time was like, in the case of tornadoes that happen commonly around here, what happens when there's any kind of damage? I mean, I know you guys say you're liable, but if it gets taken out, is there going to be insurance that replaces the panels? Or what we wouldn't want to happen is all of a sudden the project does not work, and then we get set with a vacant, ground full of
nothing.
Yeah. So
absolutely. So we have to insure all of our plants through our financial project finance process, and so they're all fully covered. We actually have backup modules. We have regional warehouses that house extra, we call them modules, panels, whatever you want to call them, and extra equipment that are protected so that if something does happen, just from an electrical operational standpoint, we can quickly mobilize, roll trucks, and make sure that we get up and fully online as soon as possible. But we also have protection schemes that we work with the electric company here in Lexington, and we've done this before, where if something does happen, you guys have a right to pull a switch and turn it off outside of our gate. So there's no safety issue there for sure. But yeah, they're all insured, and that it hasn't happened a lot. We have plants in South Georgia where there's been hurricanes, and you'd be amazed at how resilient they are and how we haven't had issues. But all of our panels, most, I'd say 90 to 95%, I said all, but I mean 95% of our fleet, our portfolio, is something called First Solar panels. They're cadmium telluride, so they're all black. They're not this kind of navy blue looking with the aluminum, lines and squares and whatnot. It just looks like a black TV screen, frankly. But they are protected. They're windproof. I mean, if EF5 comes and directly hits it, then we're all in trouble, right? I mean, that's just another fact of life. But they're all hail.
Right, but the main point is, if something does happen for any reason and the operation ceases to exist or damage happens to it, there's no way that you guys can leave the land as it is. That goes back to the restrictions on it. I mean, I'm not sure of the contracts. I haven't read it, but I know we're guaranteed a 30-year price. But if things don't work out for any reason, I mean, what I'd be scared of is having a ghost, situation where you've got all this equipment sitting there on 130 acres in a nice location that just sits there.
We have to have, we're required to have a decommissioning plan for every single plant. And we have to abide by that. And so at the end of the useful life of the system, whether it's 30 or 40 years, after, if Lexington doesn't want to continue pursuing and we sell the TVA after that extra 10 years, we have to return it to its previous state before the solar development comes.
And one thing, if you could reiterate, I remember you telling us before that should we're promised X amounts of energy per year, and should an incident occur, upon X amount of days, that energy is basically taken out of the calculation, correct?
Yes, sir.
So,
So if there is a force majeure event, weather, whatever, force majeure, I'm not an attorney, but, there's a lot of different things that fall under force majeure. But we're required, it's in our best interest, our mutual best interest, to provide as much power as possible, to provide you as much savings as possible. That being said, there's a minimum supply guarantee, and so when we electrically can't provide to you, whether it's something on your system or something with our system, when we can't electrically provide those electrons, and we just have to shut down for it, maybe it's safety, maybe it's reliability, whatever it may be, those are called excused hours, so they go into that calculation of the supply guarantee, and they're omitted, and they get put aside.
I remember you, I just wanted you to just reiterate that. Everybody understood it.
Good question.
Would this board be willing to enter a contract contingent upon company being annexed?
I think you're just asking.
I know, but
Well,
it would be nice if it was be annexed. I just think.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to it. Maybe somebody else does.
Let's do that.
Would this board be willing to enter a contract with Silicon Ranch contingent that they do, if what he said, October of 2025, agree to be annexed into the city?
I think it's a win-win.
Well, I thought you said you were, did you not say you are willing to enter a contract? Did you not say that earlier?
But yeah,
back
we
in
have,
October
the current contracts, the PPA, power purchase agreement, and the interconnection agreement, we are willing to annex or go through the process of annexation to the city, because I don't know all the details of that. I've reviewed it with our team, but we'd be willing to request and have it annexed to the city post completion of construction. And I can figure, I don't know what the right legal documentation of that is, with a letter or intent, but we're, I have it all the way from our president and CEO that he is fine with that.
Our city attorney could help us with that. Couldn't you, Ken? Oh, Ken?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But that would be October, you said, around 2025.
That's anticipated. I would encourage it to be, I don't know your tax years, but our contracts say we will be up and online by December 31st, 2025, but we anticipate, I'm just giving you the construction bottoms up schedule, end of October, but that's the plan. But glad to work through that with our legal and you can.
So what do you need from us tonight?
We need approval to actually execute those contracts.
You can make that motion if you want to and make it contingent that they would enter an agreement at that time, post to do it in city annex.
And then we can discuss it after we make the motion, then we can discuss it among the board.
After we see the contract.
Yes, it'll take a second reading.
Yes.
That's what I
Yes.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion that we agree to enter into a contract with Silicon Ranch contingent upon them providing a letter stating that they're willing to be annexed into the city post-construction or post-completion of the project on Timberlake Watersville Road.
Before we get a second, Cody, that would be right. I mean, we have to do a second reading.
I would also have to do that and give the mayor authority to execute the agreements.
Give the mayor the authority to execute the contract and the agreement.
Yes.
Okay.
And amend that part to my motion.
Vice Mayor, may I make a comment?
Sure.
This is fairly time sensitive, in terms of, and I'll have our legal, I just want to make, for everyone's awareness, we would need the PPA and the interconnection agreement signed no later than August 1st for us to hit our schedule. There's a lot of contracting and there's a lot of milestones for us to hit the end of 2025 dates, and August 1st is the date. And so, obviously, you have my word, and we'll get together. I'm just expressing the relative urgency of getting this done if the board so approves with that motion. So I don't know how quick the letter can be worked on between councils, but I know it'll have our folks' attention.
So after hearing what he said, Fred, do you want to still continue with your motion, or?
Absolutely.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
One question, so what you're saying, the letter might impede you getting started in time?
The letter won't, but the signatures on the power purchase agreement, the PPA, and the interconnection agreement is what's impeding the schedule.
So is your motion not to sign till we have that agreement, or the way to sign now?
Well, we'll have to clean it all up, I mean, we'll have to get the agreements lined out, issue a letter. I'll give you my email at the end of it.
Are we gonna have to have a second reading to approve it? Because, I mean, honestly, this is a lot of new stuff that I wanna understand. I'm gonna ask some questions that's not here, because this is the first I've heard about it since the last meeting.
So that's a code question, is this a second reading, would it take 2 readings, Cody?
We can place on the agenda for Monday night, along with the budget. If Kim thinks we get everything turned around by then,
That's fine.
and the board's good with discussing it Monday night.
You want to keep your motion on the floor?
I do.
You have a second.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
The only question, I guess, the mayor was on board with this too, Brad.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, he told me he was.
Call the roll, please.
Jimmy White.
Yes.
Gordon Wildridge. Gabe Williams.
Yes.
Sandra Wood.
Yes,
Fred Ellis.
Yes.
Roger Lofton.
Yes.
Tim Rhodes.
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, before you leave, Brad, I have a question to you about what we were just discussing. The conservative figure of $380,000 a year savings. Does the electric system have plans on what to do with that money, or is it a true savings to the system?
It would be a savings to the system, yeah.
And what have you given thought to it? I should have asked you beforehand, but I just heard the numbers. What are your plans to do with the money?
It's a good question. I know this previous fiscal year, we were over budget, so we came in the negative. So it'll help alleviate some of that, kind of help us balance our budget a little better as well. But I think time will tell. We could put it into different things like right away or something like that. But I think just over time, we'd have to just see how things work out.
That's good to know.
Okay.
But I do have other questions about that, because if on the conservative side, 300, well,
Sure.
All right, next on the agenda is 7.4, is discuss surplus property disposition request for College Drive, parcel 6111, Clarity Counseling. Do we have Mr. Hanson in the audience? Miss Hanson? I'm sorry. He's not speaking. I'm sorry. If you don't mind, if you just come to the podium, please.
And this is Tally.
Okay, just come to the podium and state your name.
I'm Pam Hanson. Tally Flowers.
Okay, you want to tell the board a little bit about what
So we have Wild Clarity Counseling in town. We're in a small building on Monroe across from the electric department. Utilities, I'm sorry. I passed over there. So we're outgrowing our space and have not really been able to find something that fits our needs. So this opportunity arose for us to potentially purchase this space over on College to build a bigger building so that we can expand our services.
And this is surplus property, so I'm gonna ask Ken, how do we do that? Do we auction that off, or how would that work if the board decided to do this?
Well, let me look into that. I don't know offhand how to do it. I can figure it out. I think it probably had to be auctioned the highest bidder. Or it could be sealed bids. Couple of options.
Okay, so, you're gonna look into that, right? Okay. So, Kim Walker's gonna look into that as city attorney, and then, the mayor or Cody will get back with you once he gets the information that he needs.
Okay.
Is that fair enough?
Yep.
I'm glad to see y'all are growing, so that's really
Yes.
good.
Yes, we need it.
Well, I mean, it might not be good that you're growing, that the kids need the
Right,
counseling.
I know. We do a lot.
You know, that
Mhm.
you might have this opportunity to get that far.
Thank you.
Can I talk to you guys outside?
Sure.
Okay, the next three items on the agenda, 7.5, 7.6, and 7.7. This will be a public hearing. We will need to vote on each one of those separately. It has to do with property beside the new TCAT building. So I'm gonna read these off, and like I said, we'll have to vote for them separately. And if you have questions, you'll have to refer that to Cody. So 7.5 is discuss and approve the resolution to annex certain territory and to incorporate the same within the corporate boundaries of the city of Lexington, Tennessee. Property furtherly described as tax parcel 009.02, owned by the Lexington Industrial Development Board as depicted on Henderson County Tax Map 051, adjacent to the existing corporate limits. 7.6 is discuss and approve the resolution adopting a plan of service for the annexation of property furtherly described as tax parcel 009.02, owned by the Lexington Industrial Development Board as depicted on Henderson County Tax Map 051, adjacent to the existing corporate limits. And then 7.7 is discuss and approve a second reading of an ordinance amending the official zoning map of Lexington, Tennessee by zoning annexed property tax parcel 009.02, owned by the Lexington Industrial Development Board as depicted on Henderson County Tax Map 051, M2 Heavy Industrial. Cody, could you explain a little bit more about that?
Yes, this kind of fills a gap in between the property owned by the state of Tennessee for the new TCAT and then the rest of the Tender Lake Industrial Park. This little sliver of property, 11 acres, that will connect the two and comprise the right-of-way for the future technology lane.
Cody?
Who's gonna do the utility work on that?
Whenever the road's completed,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. That's probably years down the road.
But I mean, how is TCAT that's already annexed in the city, right? TCAT is?
There's a coordination meeting amongst all the utility providers on Thursday.
So we don't really know yet what they're gonna do.
This doesn't affect any property not owned by the city of Lexington or the industrial board.
That's correct.
No easements on any people or business.
This is parcel 51, all right?
No, parcel 9.03.
On the tax map 51.
This small part right here. What I'm asking is, this is
only for 11 acres.
Correct.
Has nothing to do with the lady's other 97 acres or whatever.
That's correct.
That's not to be annexed.
Any more questions for Cody about that? Either 7.5, 7.6, or 7.7? Like I said earlier, we'll have to vote on those separately. So the first one is the 7.5.
Motion to approve.
Motion, do we have a second? Call the roll, please.
Gordon Wildridge.
Yes.
Gabe Williams.
Yes.
Sandra Wood.
Yes.
Brad Ellis.
Yes.
Roger Lofton.
Yes.
Tim Rhodes.
Yes.
Jimmy White.
Okay. 7.6.
Make a motion to second.
Call the roll.
Gabe Williams.
Yes.
Sandra Wood.
Yes.
Brad Ellis.
Yes.
Roger Lofton.
Yes.
Tim Rhodes.
Yes.
Jimmy White.
Yes.
Gordon Wildridge.
Yes.
Okay, and 7.7. That's right, yes. We didn't do 7.7, did we? No. 7.7, this is the second reading of the ordinance on tax parcel 009.02.
Motion.
Motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Sandra Wood.
Yes.
Brad Ellis.
Yes.
Roger Lofton.
Yes.
Tim Rhodes.
Yes.
Jimmy White.
Yes.
Gordon Wildridge.
Yes.
Gabe Williams.
Yes.
7.8 is discuss and approve the first reading ordinance amending the official zoning map of Lexington, Tennessee to rezone parcel 008.00 on Henderson County Tax Map 82P, Group C, parcel 012.00 on Henderson County Tax Map 082P, Group D, and parcel 006.08 on Henderson County Tax Map 91A, Group B, from M2 Heavy Industrial and R2 High Density Mixed Structure Residential to B1 Neighborhood Businesses. And I think this has something to do with the Head Start. Is that right, Cody?
That's correct. B2, B1 is a board conforming zoning of the property to make sure that the Head Start will work for this property.
This is where the old slant building was.
That's correct.
Motion.
Okay, I have a motion to have a second. Call the roll, please.
Brad Ellis.
Yes.
Roger Lofton.
Yes.
Tim Rhodes.
Yes.
Jimmy White.
Yes.
Gordon Wildridge.
Yes.
Gabe Williams.
Yes.
Sandra Wood.
Yes. Next item is 7.9, is discuss and approve the first reading of an ordinance amending the text of the zoning ordinance of Lexington, Tennessee to amend Chapter 9, Special Provisions governing parking, loading, signs, site plan review, and temporary structures, Section 11-903, handicapped parking, Section 11-906, sign regulations, provisions, purpose, and Section 11-907I, construction, lighting, and maintenance standards pertaining to the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I think this is a transition plan with any new construction, Cody?
That's correct. In 2019, the board voted on the ADA transition plan presented by Cannon and Cannon. One of the recommendations was zoning text amendments, and for whatever reason, the board never passed those amendments. And it's just put before the planning commission at the last meeting.
Just an oversight on it.
Yes.
Make a motion.
Okay, have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Call the roll, please.
Roger Lofton.
Yes.
Tim Rhodes.
Yes.
Gordon Wildridge,
Yes.
Gabe Williams,
Yes.
Sandra Wood,
Yes.
Brad Ellis.
Yes.
7.10 is discuss and approve resolution capitalization policy. Cody, I think this is on page 85.
That is correct. On page 85 is the capitalization policy we're asking the board to amend. Basically, it details out the useful life of assets that will be required to capitalize, and also sets higher dollar amounts for capitalization as well.
And under the useful life, do we come up with those numbers or life expectancy, or how does that come about?
Some of these are industry standards, and some of them will be, like for construction projects, we will rely on an engineer's estimate of useful life. For some of the heavy equipment, we'll rely on manufacturer's estimate of useful life.
Do you have any questions?
I agree.
Everybody on that? Okay.
So, what happens at the end of useful life to this stuff?
It has a net book value of 0 on the books.
But it does not necessarily have to be replaced, because when will this go into effect?
It's already in effect, but the higher dollar amounts for capitalization and the different useful lives will go into effect immediately.
Well, I guess the question is, since a lot of this will all come due right at the same time, that's very pricey. So are we obligating the city in the future to, at the end of their useful life, to upgrade, update, or replace this equipment? Or is this just say, hey, it's been 30 years, has a net value of 0 to our books, but we're not obligated to do anything?
In theory, it's supposed to prompt the board that at the end of the useful life, you replace the asset. So whenever you first purchase an asset, or it's first placed on the capitalization schedule, that's when you start depreciating it. So the purchase of the asset does not hit our P&L. The monthly depreciation is how that asset is reflected on our books.
So is this sort of a blueprint, long-term blueprint of future projects that we need to be thinking about, or other boards will need to be thinking about on how they're going to finance them? Because if we're talking about roads, sewer systems, drainage systems, buildings, they can probably get pretty pricey based on today's value. So 20 years from now, 30 years. I guess what I'm asking, are we obligating the city in 25, 30 years to fix these issues?
No, just to clarify, this is an accounting standard.
Oh, okay.
This is on the books, it's GASB 34, it's placed on the books eons ago. McAuliffe Lewis and Silverwood worked real hard to put this together in 2006, I believe.
So the stuff's on the books now already have a length of life already?
Yes.
So what we're saying is anything going forward, we replace it then?
Anything moving forward would fall under this new schedule.
Well, I'm explaining because I'm looking at vehicles, cars, 5 to 10 years. Do we have any cars now that's lasted 5 to 10 years?
Absolutely. In fact, our books are full of assets that are fully appreciated and they're way beyond their useful life.
And sanitation trucks?
Same thing.
Why do we buy one every 3 years, 300-something thousand?
Now, something that we've done on the last purchase, I've got from Casey, and we've been booking trucks for longer than their useful life. So we've been trying to make sure that the book, that over the last year or so, the trucks that we're booking align with actual useful life.
Do them on a lease or something, so we rotate them out every 3 years. Try to keep a warranty on them.
And that's why the board approved doing a 3-year capital outlay note instead of a longer time period. That way the debt would not exceed the useful life.
Well, the cars that are 5 to 10, I usually buy 2 or 3 every year, so how many cars do we have? How many cars and trucks does actually the city have?
Quite a few. And I believe last time it was presented to the board, Cotton told the board that he keeps an inventory of vehicles of well over 100. So even buying 2 or 3, just like patrol cars, we're still exceeding the useful life.
How many patrol cars do we have? We've got 35. How many policemen do we have?
Budgeted for 30 million.
We've got 35 cars, and we're looking to buy 2 more.
We always keep 1 or 2 as pools as if we have one wrecked or in shop, mechanical issue, inevitably it's going to happen.
Thank you, Cody.
Let me ask one more. How many sanitation trucks do we have?
Residential, commercial, recycling, and backup too.
4.
Anything else? Ken, you have anything? So, do we have a motion to approve the capitalization policy?
Make a motion. Second.
Call the roll, please.
Tim Rhodes,
Yes.
Jimmy White, Gordon Wildridge,
Yes.
Gabe Williams,
Yes.
Sandra Wood,
Yes.
Brad Ellis,
Yes.
Roger Lofton.
Yes.
Thank you. 7.11, Justin Rowe. That is discuss and approve gravel and sand bids.
We had 3 bidders, each one amount of the bids. There was 12 different rock classes. Jones Contractors won 4, RNC Trucking got 5, and Wayne County Rock got 3. We're recommending to award the bid for the lowest bidder for each.
I'll make a motion.
Then, the last bids, then the RNC Express on the one we voted on the bottom.
Yes. Well, there was another bidder, but he didn't meet the criteria, so.
Basically, you have to take his bids, right? Okay. So it's a sole bid on those. I guess it's 6 or something like that.
Had a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Jimmy White,
Yes.
Gordon Wildridge,
Yes.
Gabe Williams,
Yes.
Sandra Wood,
Yes.
Brad Ellis,
Yes.
Roger Lofton,
Yes.
Tim Rhodes.
Yes.
Justin, you can stay up there for 7.12, discuss and approve the water, gas, wastewater, and garbage write-off.
$6,013.46 was the overall for this month. This is odd. We got a lot of gas customers that it's not cold, so they'll just hold out till next year, and that this month is where we caught up a lot of those.
Make a motion.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? Call the roll, please.
Gordon Wildridge,
Yes.
Gabe Williams,
Yes.
Sandra Wood,
Yes.
Brad Ellis,
Yes.
Roger Lofton,
Yes.
Tim Rhodes,
Yes.
Jimmy White.
Thank you, Justin. 7.13 is discuss broadband update.
I just got a few bullet points I've made for a broadband update. So as of today, We have 1,436 LexNet customers connected to our service, so we're moving along pretty good. We're connecting customers every day, probably about an average of 12 to 15 customers a day gets fully connected. We ran that report on the letters we sent out to those that are on the Sand Ridge OLT service territory. We sent out 1,679 marketing letters to those customers. Those are who we deemed would be potential subscribers. Of those letters we sent out, we ran a report and determined that 119 of those are now connected to the service. And that doesn't really seem like a big number, but that 119 is equivalent to $9,000 a month in revenue. And it only costs about $1,500 to issue those letters. So even if just a fraction of those was due to sending the letters out, then it was a good investment. So I'm say we keep doing that throughout the process. We just sent letters out to those in the West Lexington service territory, and there was about 1,800 letters that were sent out there. So we'll see how the response goes to those as well. A couple milestones we hit this month. It was 2 weeks ago. We installed the South Parsons OLT. So our mainline contractors are going through the Montgomery area, and we're kind of getting ahead of them, preparing for them to come into South Parsons and Parsons. So we installed the South Parsons OLT building last week, and mid-August we're scheduled to install the Parsons OLT, and that will complete all the what we call the fiber huts, the OLT buildings. That's what houses all the critical infrastructure, the electronics that push the light out. So those are a couple of pretty big milestones. But that's all I have to report on the broadband, unless anybody has any questions about anything that's going on.
Is there a timeline of when everybody in the system will be available for?
We anticipate early summer or so. Everybody in our entire system will be available for sales.
So this calendar year is fair to say. Next summer.
Yeah, next summer.
I'm sorry, a year from now.
Yeah, roughly this time next year, maybe a little sooner.
Are you pleased with the 1436? I mean, I know you wish it was more, but I mean,
Yeah, I think that's a good pace. I mean, February was when we connected our first paying customer, and so just a few months we've got almost 1,500. So I think that's doing well. Yeah, I'm pleased with that.
You don't have it connected by Decatur yet, Decatur County?
Not yet. It's not available to anybody in Decatur County just yet. We're still, I'd say, halfway through Henderson County.
What was our target number break even? Was it 3,500?
It was a 30% take rate was what everything was based on. And that's equivalent to about somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 subscribers. Would be about a 30% take rate.
So to piggyback off their questions, what percent roughly is now available?
In the Sand Ridge area, which is the area that's fully open for sales, we're in the high 20s. So I want to say like 27, 26%, something like that.
I'm sorry, I'm more referring to the total capacity of the new system. How many people are now available? I don't have the availability to have internet.
I don't have that number. I'm not sure.
You understand my question?
Yeah,
So,
I do. Yeah, but I don't have that number.
it's all right.
We still get many online applications?
Yeah, we get them every day. I don't know how many a day, but we get several a day.
I think the word is getting out. I got a personal phone call actually left a voicemail that I was now available for service. So that happened this last week. So I think they do have quite a few.
Yeah, and as this continues, the word will continue to circulate. So, we hadn't even got to Decatur County yet, and they're chomping at the bit too.
Right. The more word circulates, the more I'm getting asked, when do I get it?
That's the thing. We have a high volume of people wanting it, but there's only so much manpower and material to get it to them. So we're having to. There's a lot of moving parts to it, and you got to find a good balance of all the moving parts to keep it running smoothly. And that can be tricky at times.
I thought in the presentation, Jeff, and our break even number, we would be, well, like a break even, let's call it that, was 3,500.
That may be a break-even number. I'm not for sure about that, but I know the take rate was what the feasibility study was based off of, and they're assuming that we'll hit at least that, and 30% of our, say, 23,000 customers is about 6,000.
So we have two different numbers we're working on 30%.
That's our projected take rate,
Okay.
and it's a conservative take rate.
That's about $5 million a year, and then the 3,500, about $3 million a year. So based on, well, we got a 20-year payback on that.
Yeah, the more customers we can get subscribed, the
we're gonna borrow money, so based on, right now we borrowed from the city, to make the electric system, so eventually we're gonna borrow money to make this thing work. But eventually, the grant's gonna pay for roughly, what, 25 million, 27 million?
about 27 and a half.
So we don't know how much we're gonna owe.
We've got a bond of 22 million.
22. So 22 million is what we're gonna have to look at.
That's what we got to pay back.
Okay, 22 million. Has anybody looked at feasibility on what they think the projected life's gonna be? We have to finance how long it'll be yet.
The electric system loan, Lexington at 2.6 million, and the payback on that is 19 years, I believe.
Yeah.
And as far as paying back the bond, I don't have that number in front of me. I've seen it before, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But there's a payback on it as well.
Cody, you involved on that bond?
As far as the initial issuance,
No, the 22 million that we're gonna have to have. Have we even looked at that yet? Have we do anything on that yet?
would be, but first thing we gotta do is get the budget passed.
But when the guy came and did his presentation, if we get the 30%, I think it equaled out to, 13 years, that it could be paid back. That 22 at 30%.
But he also said the break-even rate was 35, actually 35, almost 3,600 for that customers. I say break-even, pay everything that we're, all our bills, pay our employees, pay everything. Of course, we all know that everything that we're leaving is fixing to go up the next 3 or 4 years, it's not going to go down. So 30% would be great. We don't need to have our expectations of how we're going to get to that rate. You know what I'm saying? You still think we get 30%?
I think we'll get at least that. I think in another 6 months we'll have a much better idea. You know, this will all play out over time, and we're still in the fairly early stages of it, and we'll have a better understanding, 6 months from now where we'll be. But I think we're trending in the right direction.
I know you're trending in the right direction. When you had a subscriber, you're going in the right direction. but like I said, what me personally is concerned with is what price is going to be when we get done, and what we're going to be setting that financially.
I haven't seen or heard any complaints about LexNet, and I don't think you could say the same thing about Spectrum.
I think the main thing that we're struggling with now is the high volume of people that want the service, and due to a high volume, it takes us longer than what we like to actually go through all the steps to get you fully connected. So, you may request a service, and it may take 2 or 3 weeks to actually get you fully online because, we got to run the drop and then schedule a time to meet with you to go to your house and go in the house and set up the equipment. So with the high amount of volume of people wanting that, and we only have so much manpower, boots on the ground doing it, so it's hard to, that's part of the moving pieces and finding the balance.
What about on a new build house? The fiber itself. I'd like to see a piece of that fiber. The fiber itself, I've heard that it was not flexible.
The fiber drop is flexible.
The way I
Now, the
understood
main
it-
line, it's a thicker cable. It's got up to 144 strands of fiber in it.
But what
So
comes
that,
to
and it's
your
also
house-
got a membrane.
What comes to your house goes in.
It's flexible. I seen it, yeah.
Jeff said at one time if a tree fell on it, he'd take it to the ground to cut the tree off and go back up.
Well, depends on how big the tree limb is.
Yeah, but I mean, compared to electric,
Yeah, they claim that.
Yeah.
We'll see. It'll
Yeah.
happen,
right?
and we'll see how it works.
But coming into your house, it's very flexible.
Yeah, it's just one strand of fiber.
Do you have any?
I got it a week ago.
I'm talking about, I'd like to see a piece of it.
I don't have a piece, but I can get one. We can cut off a piece.
I'd like to have a piece. And give me a buzz. I'd like to.
We'll get it.
More for Brad on the broadband. Next is 7.14, discuss and approve electric quarterly write-off.
Like to approve write-offs in the amount of $8,907.62 for this quarter.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Dave Williams.
Yes.
Sandra Wood.
Yes.
Brad Ellis.
Yes.
Roger Lofton.
Yes.
Tim Rose.
Yes.
Jimmy White.
Yes.
Gordon Wilkins.
The next four items, 7.15, 7.16, 17, and 18, contains a balance. We're gonna start with 7.15, is discuss human resource job posting policy. I think that's on page 99 of your agenda. In your packet.
All right, so I've been asked this question multiple times. And there actually is a city policy about job postings having to be posted internally. This is also for the department heads. Each department head, I was counting up earlier, we've got a lot of brand new department heads with less than a year of being in their positions. I'd like for all of them to be aware of these policies, and the question that I have for the board is this city policy, what departments does it entail? Does it entail the entire city? General fund? Is LES? Is public works? Are some of them, all of them, are specific ones mandated under this policy? Or does anybody know?
Are you asking me or the board?
I'm asking, it's open. Because what I'd like to see, or what I'd like to know is, well, that's the question. What departments does this entail, in y'all's opinion, since it's not clearly stated in the policy?
I would assume all of them, but that doesn't, when you assume, that doesn't really mean that's what it is.
It should be all of them.
Does anybody agree that it doesn't include every department, or are some departments excluded? So with that being said, can we rewrite, amend the policy that states that every department has to follow the policy that we have on hand? That if there is a job opening within the city of Lexington, that it is posted internally for qualified candidates. If you're not qualified and there is an external candidate who is a better candidate, then leave it strictly up to the department head, because because I don't think that we want to be involved in the hiring process. But if we have internal qualified candidates who are dedicated to the city, they should be allowed to apply for that position. And this goes sort of within that same policy, new department heads. If you have somebody within your department who sees a better job posting, this is something that I have practiced my entire professional career. Part of it is your duty is to help your people get to a better position within life, even if it includes you losing that employee to another department. And that's something I think that all department heads should keep in mind. So will that require some type of amendment or some type of vote to amend the policy to include the electric system, the utilities, public works, fire and police, city hall? If you have a position open that you posted within our people who are qualified for that position, does everybody sort of understand what I'm asking? And does anybody see an issue or problem with that?
I'm sorry, I was reading.
I got a question for you.
Sir.
Qualifications, where do you find those?
Department heads, when they post a position.
All right. Is there a list of qualifications for each position right now available?
I can't answer that. I'm not a department head.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. I mean, internal hiring within it's a lot easier, number one. But number two is if they're qualified.
And clearly stated, qualified personnel.
You got to have a list of each qualification for each position. You can't take somebody from Public Works that has no clue about being a police officer and moving them in position in the police officer because they're not going to qualify for that.
Yes and no. If you have an entry-level police officer position.
How do you know? What's the qualifications for an entry-level police officer? Can you answer that?
What I said. Department head.
The qualifications.
Yeah. That's
Right.
understandable.
But have the qualifications available beforehand.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm okay with that.
Okay, when we post jobs internally, I do send it to Public Works, Police, Fire, and Utilities. I don't send it to the electric system. I post it internally, and maybe I should be, but I've never had anybody want to come from the electric system to this side.
But somebody.
It is posted with general job descriptions, and then I'll usually attach a copy of the full job description.
So there you go. So that is taken care of.
So,
So.
But what if somebody want to go to the election?
That was my question, kind of around to Brad. Do you post your job openings to other city employees?
We have a policy at the electric system that was approved by the board many years ago, where the electric system is to consider its employees for promotion before considering outside the company.
That's basically the same thing that I'm saying, but like.
Let's say if you have a cashier open up at there. So a cashier's a cashier. So if they work at City Hall, if they work down at the gas department, could they transfer to the electric system?
So for a cashier, that's considered an entry-level position, and we don't post that internally at all. We just immediately go to the general public with that.
So you don't give anybody in the other part of the city a chance to look at it then?
Well, anybody from the city could apply for it when it's posted to the general
So
public.
I guess the question, are you willing to change that?
I'm always worried about this
because
policy.
we can amend that, but the reason being, some of your entry-level positions are higher than seasoned city employees' positions. And, somebody may not want to, but I would like to be able
I don't have a problem with other city departments applying for our positions. The only thing that concerns me is if there is a promotion available, it's, in my opinion, it's only fair that an LES employee be considered first, because they know our system, and most of the time, somebody within the electric system is the most qualified for that position.
But I guess that's for you, that's not, I guess that's not what I'm asking. I guess the question is basically for entry-level positions then. Are you willing for entry-level positions? I see what you're saying about internal positions that are go on up. You're right, your people are the most qualified, but for entry-level positions, can we change your internal current policy to reflect that it goes through internal city first before being posted to the public?
Would it be, I get what you're saying. I think the idea of having it open to the general public would be better, because you have a bigger pool of people to apply for it to choose from, and therefore you have the potential to have the best candidate for the position.
But then we're gonna have to put something out to report, if somebody is hired away from us.
Could you not put it internally and out to the general public at the same time? And then have it all
That's
clean?
an option as well.
That way you would have them all.
You could send it to me, I could get it.
I'm just thinking, if for an entry-level position, the more people you can have able to apply for it, the more people you have to screen and to choose from, and then you can have a better candidate.
Entry-level position, CSR, if you are, it comes down to the end of the day, what the question really comes to, there's a huge pay discrepancy between other departments and LES. And I think we should just, if we have a CSR at City Hall, Public Works, utilities, I think they should have the option before Jim, John, Sally, who just finished high school or whatever, who knows somebody who applies for it. I just like to not take care of, but give the internal employees that option first. But if somebody comes along who is more qualified, I don't have a problem with hiring the most qualified person. That's not what I'm saying, is if two people are not qualified, but if they're equally qualified, I'd like to first at least consider a city employee across all departments. Not just yours, but all departments.
I think as a new employee for Lexington, not new citizen, but new employee, the biggest issue that is hard to decipher is our HR centralized? Is it City of Lexington? For City of Lexington, centralized, in my theory, is governmental fund and both of our enterprise funds. Or is it LES is this, utilities and general government fund is this, or is it enterprise government fund? It is not self-explained. So we have people doing whatever theory they think should be working at that time. Instead, as what you're presenting is, let's get that policy out there.
Policy.
Let's decide if it's centralized or do each enterprise fund and each governmental fund run their own. Because it's very confusing at this moment.
And piggybacking on that, another part of the reason brought it up is it's come to my knowledge that even like FMLA, there's no centralized policy per department heads. Even though there's a FMLA policy, if I twist my ankle, Jimmy may say, Fred, take a couple of weeks off, and then I'll say, well, I've had a month off now, I'm going to start my FMLA, but he may do it for me, but does it different from, for Tim, if it's not to cause confusion, it's to protect the city and the department heads from confusion, is to have a centralized policy on most things.
That was
And to
the
jump
board.
back to that, to the charter states, our active charter states that our H director is actually Mr. Cody, your city recorder or delegate. So to me, that covers all of our city entity funds, whether the enterprise funds or their general fund. But it also says now that he can do a delegate, and I think that was changed in 2008. So does he delegate that LES has one, utilities has one, and general fund has one? Or do we centralize and everything's ran through one of the funds?
As a board, do we want every department to have their own policy on how they do everything, or do we want a city of Lexington policy, basically, for stuff like this? Like FMLA, they're both departments are going to have certain policies that are specific to them, but FMLA, HR, those policies should be system-wide, in my opinion. And that's what I'm asking. Are we okay with the way it is, or should we look at somehow beginning to coalesce it all into one? Because you also got to think, if a department head does something and it turns out that it's improper, is it that department head's fault for doing something wrong, or is it partly our fault for putting them in the position and not giving them tools to go by and basically saying, you do it however you want, and then they do it wrong? I guarantee you, whether it's this board or any other board, it's going to sit here and point their fingers at them. This helps protect them, and all of them are new. Do we have one department head who's been a department head more than 16, 18 months?
I've been a department head for
Well,
19.
yes, Cody. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overlook you. But our department heads, most of them have been here less than a year as a department head. And I'm looking at protecting them because there are enough people that are already looking at everything that's done, that we give them the tools and the guidelines to protect the city, to protect them. And right now, it's willy-nilly. It's, well, I'm going to do this, well, I'm going to do this.
Do we have a company book, city book, for all employees? You give them who you hire?
Personnel policies, well, I don't have one here.
Yeah,
But
we
yeah,
got.
there is one.
Okay.
There is one.
I think that
But
anybody in the city ought to be able to apply for any job in the city. Based on their
Well, they can
qualifications.
apply.
Based on their qualification, well,
You're talking about sign a job bid.
they should be able to bid if there's a entry level or whatever at LES, and somebody that's working in public works wants to bid on it, they should be able to.
And not go through the outside process as if they're an outsider. You mean an internal process?
What you're saying is you fill it internally if possible, and if you cannot fill it, you go outside.
Right. Based on qualifications.
But that's just my opinion.
Well,
It should be.
your employees would feel more justified if they thought that they had a chance to work their way up within the city instead of being on a job and somebody was hired in at a higher pay rate than their job.
Right off the street.
Then right off the street, it kind of, and look, I'm not saying qualified, I'm just saying they should at least be given the opportunity to have an interview for that job. And if they not, then they should be told why they can't fill that job. That's the department head, but now, I'm gonna go one step further right here. That packet I handed out was where everybody got, we don't have any more department heads. It's right here, I handed everybody. There's no department heads according to the city charter now. The department heads are all removed. They're all officers now.
Thank you, Fran. We can get to that once we get through the rest of that. That's okay.
It's okay, you're saying down here, what we're talking
It's
about.
part of that.
This all goes to the same thing. The question is, what he's saying is, if we're gonna change this to get opportunity for everybody in the city to apply for it. By the way, we're not talking about the big police chief. What we're we're talking about is be entry level, you know, in some job that you can move over from one department to another department and get a little more money, because some departments don't pay the same. Entry level at one may be higher than the other. That's what we're saying is give them a chance. And that way we feel like we give the opportunity to them workers internally first, and then if it can be filled, it goes outside. I mean, I think that's a fair thing. And then if he left up to whomever, and I use that word whomever, to do the hiring is whoever puts that request in, according to the way the thing is wrote right now, is the request has to go to the city recorder anyway. To hire somebody has to go to him anyway. Is that not factual? I think that's the way it is. Y'all do that way? So he said to him. So then he looks and he can decide to post it. That's what he does. And then it comes in, he his qualifications, whichever department it is, whether it's public works or whether it's fire department or whatever, he sends these over to them. They look at them. They say, okay, can you interview these? And they say, well, these don't meet this, don't meet that. But then if they got one to the interview, as an interview, they find somebody to accept them. If they not, they go back and tell him we can't do it. We got to do it outside.
So
Don't we need an H&R person for everything?
We got H&R person.
Who?
Friends H&R.
For the whole city?
Well,
Let's back up.
not LES.
Let's
I'm
back
talking
up.
about utilities. I'm not talking about.
Yeah, Fran is, but not LES.
Let's back up, okay? Let's back up. What he's saying is, even though she is HR person for the city, what he's saying is that we want to make this job description apply to all departments, either it be an electric system or any system doing it. That's what Fred's saying. I read you right.
that is correct.
Right. So one policy fits all.
For that.
For that.
Not everything.
Yeah, not for everything, but for that entry-level position. That's what it should be. Now, you can't, you're not gonna find a lineman out here working inside the city. He's gonna be working over there. I understand that.
Yeah.
You're not gonna find the patrolman's already been to school that's working out here. He's gonna be there. So that automatically knocks it out. But there are positions within these. There's probably 10 to 15 positions that can transfer from one department to another department and get a chance to move up.
That's it in a nutshell.
That's all I'm saying. I agree with you.
So, how do we go about doing it? Do we do a policy change? Do we let HR and the department heads get together and figure it out on how they want the verbiage to be? What is the next step? If it seems as if, well, I guess the next way is, does the board agree with that idea? And
That you have to vote on in itself if you're gonna establish a policy like that, and if you agree on it. The board agrees to that. Then you let the department heads and the city recorder and whomever, the HR, work out what the policy will be and present to the board. And then let's look at it and see if it's something we can accept or not accept and move on.
so here's what, can I make a motion? I'd like to make a motion that the department heads and HR, whether it be Ms. Fran or Cody or a combination of all of them, get together and put a policy together for what we just discussed as far as the internal intra-department job postings or inter-departments. Or inter or intra, because there are some positions within the same department that somebody may want to bid on. So
Why don't we let Fran go ahead and put this all together and bring it back to us and look at it? Because she's gonna be handling it.
but I would like her to have the input from the department heads, instead of just arbitrarily. That's why I have looked at some from other cities, but I don't want to be involved in it. Because they would have a much better idea than I would. They all just get together and just come up with a policy for this, because there's another one on here that I would also like for them to get clarification on and have a system-wide policy on.
So that motion.
Is my motion make sense? That is my motion.
I'll second.
Okay. supersede the current policies that are in place for hiring new employees.
Just trying to understand it, where she at.
Did it make sense what I was asking?
Is that sending you on, does that make sense with Fred's?
I think, now, does this include the electric
It
system?
does.
Okay.
It does.
Okay.
Yep. So basically, it's the same thing that you have, it's just including them.
Okay. We'll make it happen.
Okay, so we got a motion. You second, Tim. Any more discussion?
Do you have an HR?
Molly handles our HR list.
So she needs to be involved.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is just for entry-level positions.
Right.
Correct. Because most positions, as you go up,
It's a party motion.
I need to
Amend.
rescind,
Amend.
I can amend it. So I'd like
Can't
to,
he amend that, Cody? He can amend that, even though we got a second, he can amend. Or we're gonna have to.
can I
go back.
rescind, can you
I can
rescind
rescind my
We'll
second.
rescind that, and you yeah.
And I rescind
And then you get a new second.
my motion.
Yeah.
So I make a motion that for any entry-level position within the city of Lexington to include, city hall, utilities, public works, LES, general fund, or any enterprise fund ran department, which that should include everybody, that the internal candidates should be sought before going out to the public. And if a internal qualified candidate is not found, then we go outside.
Question. Why entry level only if we're gonna do this? I mean, you may have somebody working for the utility department that knows a lot about, the electric system.
She might be right.
So why, why entry level
I agree.
only?
Is that a problem? Can you make it all over?
I just kept hearing entry level, and I didn't hear that in the motion.
Okay, so that's what we'll get.
We don't know what somebody's,
Same,
we suppose for the French
same
position.
motion, since it's nobody has seconded yet, remove entry level.
The electric system has a policy in place now where electric system employees are considered for promotion before looking outside the company. So it kind of be contradicting our own policy.
Well, don't y'all have an opening right now? Is it
We have one opening for a right-of-way foreman that's posted to the general public.
Yeah, I think
Is
the
it
board,
entry level?
I think the board's trying to get away from that mindset. I
Is
think
it,
they're trying to get to the mindset that all three is city when a job is open.
You got it posted to the public, why couldn't somebody that's working inside the city apply for it?
Anybody from the city can apply for it, that's the way it is.
But they,
But it would have been better if they had.
they have to apply?
And it would have been, well,
But my question on that though is, what if there's more qualified people in the general public that would be better at the job,
But
but they're not even considered?
that's the whole question. When you or whoever does the interview, tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm looking at this wrong, if that person is not qualified upon you interviewing, you don't have to hire somebody if they're not qualified.
We have that happen
Yeah.
a lot, where there may be people sign the job deed, but are not selected.
Yeah,
And
because I want to apply to be our CEO of the company I work for, but, it ain't gonna happen. I'm not qualified. So if they're not qualified, I don't think anybody on any board at any point in time will blame a department head, and it may not even be qualifications, it's also a fit. Not everybody is a fit for every department. Qualifications is only one portion of it. And as you get more experience in being a manager or managing people, you'll realize it's not just qualifications. board, we can change it. We can change their policy.
No, I mean,
Am I not right?
That's what we got.
Are we
Everybody's gotta understand
are we
that.
not the LES board also?
Yes, we are.
We can amend their policy.
So let's vote.
I got a second.
Okay. Randy,
Well, I just wanted to, are we gonna do,
Any position.
any position? Okay.
Yeah, well, we got.
Just not interested.
so we've got a motion and second, ma'am, we're fixing to vote, you can speak in citizens.
Can I ask a question? I wanna make sure I've got this right in my head. Are we making a distinction between a promotion and a new hire? Because, let me paint a scenario. I have a sergeant position vacated, a frontline supervisor. Are we not gonna, that person needs to be an experienced officer from within my organization, not posted out here. He's got to have not only experience in the job, but experience with my department in the job.
I think we're talking about new hires, right?
Al?
Would that not come to up under qualifications and department head discretion?
Well, that's what I'm asking. I'm trying to make sure I've got it right in my head. If we're gonna write this, we're gonna have to.
But that's why I'm asking that the department heads and Fran and both every HR person get together and y'all fix that.
Okay.
Y'all fix
So
that.
we can, what you're saying is like, we can make that distinction.
Yes, y'all, however you make it.
I got you.
We're just trying to get everybody.
Understood.
Yeah, I'm not making the motion that this is it, black and white. That's why we asked them to get together to work it out.
We can bring it back, we can look at
Yeah,
it, we can tweak anything that
yeah.
needs to be done, and then we can send it back. Ma'am, you have something?
Yeah, I just thought that he made a really good point, because when it comes to the electric system, I mean, that's a lot of power and qualifications and everything, and the point that he made was that there might be somebody who can say, well, you can say technically they meet some, the qualifications, but if he's having to decide on somebody who's basically meeting it, then without posting that for the public, you're not going to know that there's somebody out there that overwhelmingly meets the qualifications, has more experience and everything. It's going to be a lot safer on a job like with the electric system and everything. And you're going to find that with, some of the others, which, the others may not be as critical, but you're also looking at insurance-wise, you're looking at, like he's talking about FMLA, all this stuff, There's a lot of other factors that plays into making sure that you've got somebody that's, not just minimally qualified, but adequately qualified and experience, carries a lot.
They're not gonna hire anybody if they're not qualified.
So, right, but what I'm saying is.
And if they don't feel like they want that person, they're not gonna hire them.
Right, but if they're buckled down to, it's just offered from the, like the people that's already employed with the city, then all they're gonna know is what they have, in front of them from the city, and it's like, well, they're gonna ask me, well, did they meet the qualifications? Well, minimally, yes. So, is he gonna be tied down to hiring that person?
No.
That's what I'm saying.
He can hire whoever he wants to.
But what I'm saying is without it going to the public, that's what I'm saying is, as long as there's provisions made, I can see what his point was.
That is the reason that I asked that all the department heads get together and work together to come up with a policy.
Call for the vote.
Sandra Wood?
Yes.
Fred Ellis?
Yes.
Roger Lofton? Tim Rhodes?
Yes.
Jimmy White?
Yes.
Gordon Wildridge? Gabe Williams?
Yes.
All right, 7.16, discuss vehicle take-home policy.
All right, this is another, when we were working on the budget, this was included on the budget that I done at the very bottom. I didn't get to it because there was so much other stuff going on, but what I'm asking all the department heads, all of them, is to look at how many vehicles are taken home, the rationale behind who gets to take a vehicle home. I understand the call people, the backup call people, and policy, and what I want y'all to do is look and come back at the August meeting on, I've got this, not person, but this job, they take a vehicle home every night. This is the rationale why. And if it's a perfect rationale, I think it's fine. But I excluded the fire department because they only have one person who takes a vehicle home, and that is the assistant fire chief, who goes out on 100% of the calls. That's fine. And I excluded all LPD, all the police department was not included in this. So electric, utilities, public works, directors, managers, just look at who all takes a vehicle home. Give us a rationale of why that job title, not that person, but that job title takes a vehicle home. And just let us look at it. I'm not saying we're going to change it. We just want to know who's taking a vehicle home and why. But that's what that was about. And I'm open to anybody on the board that has to add, subtract, or anything to that.
But you said excluded fire, the one vehicle
One
and
vehicle
LPD.
and LPD. Patrolman.
Right.
Yeah. Not patrolman, but the whole department.
Do you want to hear from any of the other department heads tonight as?
I give them a month to look at it, because I didn't pre-give to them and tell them.
Okay.
Positions or names?
No, necessarily need names, you can just tell me about
I don't think
positions.
it'd be appropriate.
Huh?
I mean, I don't think it'd be appropriate to put the names on there.
That's why I said positions, not names.
But I've got mine.
Where they live, how far they drive and all that, you got all that?
I've got the monthly cost, what it costs on the drive home.
Why don't you
And
just
why
hold
they drive
off
home?
to August? Don't you want to?
Yeah, if you'll just hold off. Yeah. That's it.
Anybody else on the board want to address anything Fred talked about? The next one is 7.17 is discuss nepotism policy.
You know, I guess I just got all the good stuff tonight. But what I would like to see is a policy in place that addresses this, because there are questions that are asked, why did somebody do this, or why did they hire this person? I am not a department head. I do not attempt to tell the department heads who they can or cannot hire, but it goes back to what I have stated earlier as far as protecting the city, protecting the department heads. I'd like to see a uniform policy that protects everybody as far as nepotism. And when Ms. Fran, when y'all work on that, if y'all could work on this also, because an example, if Jimmy's a police chief or fire chief and he has a son who wants to be a police or fireman and he is highly qualified, he shouldn't be excluded because he has a relative that's in it. So I don't know how that policy.
Can you define relative?
Well, relative is mother. Well, what does the state of Tennessee? I guess we can look
I can do it from another city of Tennessee. Relative means for nepotism purposes, a spouse, parent, parent-in-law, child, brother, sister, grandparent, grandchild, son-in-law, brother-in-law, daughter-in-law, sister-in-law, stepbrother, stepsister, half-brother, half-sister, or any other family member who resides in the same household.
So department heads and HR, y'all can come up with your own, but just address it to where Roger can't come up to me one day on the street and say, why did you hire your son or your son-in-law or whatever, that there is a policy for the department heads to go by. So it's just clear for them. And it's clear for anybody in the public who has a question about whatever city employee is hired.
We hear a lot about it, and it's referred to as the buddy system.
Yes, and we just, and not trying to go back, change anything, or do anything. I'm just wanting a policy in place for department heads to follow. So when you say, why did you hire the buddy system here? There's a policy in place. Was the policy followed? No discussion. Is that fair?
Going forward.
Going forward. Just if we could, and there are many examples of it that we don't have to recreate the wheel on this, but there's a lot of examples of them out there already. We can just adopt one. Because in looking through that, I didn't see the one, or didn't understand the one that the city has, but I'd like to see one in our package that the department heads can follow. And speaking of department heads and following, something I talked about earlier, is there any training as far as how to be a manager or online courses, Ms. Brand, maybe for new city department heads?
Yeah, in fact, we've had some training. It's probably been a couple of years ago. I did have somebody come in.
Even if we had somebody to come in, if we had to put a little extra money in the budget for that, because we want our department heads to be successful, but we want to give them every tool that we can to help them be successful, because no matter how good they are, if you put a great person in a position but you don't equip them to be successful, you're dooming them to have long-term potential failure or potential problems. And if we could do this to help them long-term, I think it would be worth whatever expense within reason to provide that, since we have so many new department heads.
Going back to the nepotism, I printed off the one that Human Resources has for the entire state of Tennessee, and it does cover about everything. I'm not saying use that, but you could look at that and have something to go by. And I sent that to Cody this afternoon.
And we're just doing this to protect ourselves as a city, as a board, and our department heads. Because everybody knows the perception of the buddy system is strong in Henderson County, city of Lexington, and we're just doing this to protect everybody involved, to stop it. So we can't fix the past, but we can definitely address the future. Will that be a vote?
Put the policy together.
We have one, we have one.
We don't actually have a nepotism policy. We don't have one.
We don't? Guess we're gonna get one. I think we need one. The state says we need one, we need one.
So you want to make a motion that?
So we'll put together a nepotism policy, and the department heads and HR can get together and make it whatever they want, and then we can approve it
In accordance with the state of Tennessee.
or whatever guideline they want to go by.
I think they kind of need to follow that guideline right there.
Yeah, we'll be the same.
That'll strictly be up to them. Because we have to give leeway, because we live in a small town, and there are going to be some really good qualified candidates who are related to department head people. We have to give them the leeway to hire.
These are basically floats. Float stroke. I mean, let me go back through that again. Spouse, parent-in-law, child, brother or sister, grandparent, grandchild, son-in-law, brother-in-law, daughter-in-law, sister-in-law. Then you get into the stepbrother, stepsister, half-brother, half-sister. Very close-knit family thing right there.
So if,
Or other family members who reside in the same household.
so if Justin's,
Stepbrother, half-brother.
but if he has one of those members who goes and gets if he goes and gets a engineering degree in wastewater, and he wants to work for the city, could we not hire him if he was?
I think that would need to be a board decision.
The way that actually works with the state of Tennessee, you can have people that are related working in the same place. You just can't have a family member supervising another family member. And it states that here.
So how does that go if Justin, Jeff's got a son?
I'm got a son, I can use it as an example, I can use that.
So Jeff's son wants to be a police officer or a fireman.
He wants to be a fireman.
He wants to. So what if he goes and gets certified EMT, AME, EMT, paramedic, or whatever? He has all these qualifications. Could Jeff, even though he's a fire chief, not hire him, even though he was uniquely qualified for that position?
He need to come before the board with it, is what I would think.
Let me have you wrote your policy.
The way the state handles that, and I can give you, I'll use the highway patrol as an example, okay? Many of us know multiple generations of troopers who work for the highway patrol, state organization. The state policy reads is that the parent, the family member as defined by that definition, cannot directly supervise the family member. So if you have layers of separation in between that familial relationship, then you're not in violation of the policy.
I just don't want the policy to be so narrow and strict.
That you exclude
That
very
we-
qualified.
Yes.
Yes, you don't want to do that. Yes, I would think this board would exclude.
Yes,
qualified.
that is not the intent of what I'm trying to say.
And you can write a policy that does that.
Y'all can write a policy that does that.
Absolutely.
All right.
So are you gonna make a motion for that?
I make a motion that the city, along the lines that they did with the HR policies, that they make a nepotism policy and bring it back before the board for approval. That's my motion.
I'll say it.
Any further discussion? Alan, what?
Is it okay to say something?
Everybody else has, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Would it be considered nepotism if a board member voted for a raise for a family member?
Never been asked that question.
It's a clean question.
It's like Captain Milton said, you can't have somebody directly in a supervisory position. That's all that means. And you're not required to have one.
Right.
Does that answer your question? All right, call the roll, please.
Fred Ellis.
Yes.
Roger Lockton.
Yes.
Tim Rhodes.
Yes.
Jimmy White.
Yes.
Gordon Wildridge. Gabe Williams.
Yes.
Sandra Wood.
Yes. Last item is 7.18, discuss cemetery rules. Mr. Ellis, well, we started this in October 21.
Well, they're not in here. Can we table it again? That is another long discussion. And I'd like for everybody to have a copy. Mr. Lawson was not here then, so you probably haven't seen the copy. Cody, do you still have a copy of the rules that I sent?
Somewhere in here.
If you don't mind, just
But we also found out that we did have a copy of the rules before, nobody knew about it. Remember that?
I don't think those were ever board approved.
Huh?
I don't think those were ever.
Fran said they were. Fran said they were. The rules and regulations of the cemetery, you know, you came up with them after all this was going on. We already had them in place.
We found a list. Don't know that it was enacted. I can't even tell you where it came from.
they're
And
pretty
it has been
straightforward.
a long, I mean, I don't
Okay.
even remember them.
Okay. So if you can send the board out, Cody, a copy of those, and we can put it back on the August agenda for everybody, just like everybody to look them back over, before we go into that discussion. I think we have pretty much agreed upon them, but we have new members, just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So that will be another contentious discussion.
Gordon, did you have something?
Yeah. I got a packet in front of you. On the very first page, it says board meeting minutes, November 22nd, 2022. And what happened, the minutes read that we made two motions that was passed when I was resolution number 2022-12. That was to make a charter change that the department heads could live outside the city limits. And the next one, resolution number 2022-13, and that was so the mayor could, I guess for tie vote, he could pass the cast and vote. So that's what we sent these up to the state. They had to go have a charter change, it has to be voted on. The next page, we turn it over, that's House Bill 1553, in the 13th General Assembly. It reads summary and title. And what it was, it says the same thing that we voted on. Then, if you turn to the next page, you actually read what the House bill said. If you want to read it. But then, turn on back to the meeting of April 24, 2023. When that got voted on, it come back, and the board approved that. And whatever we sent up, we approved the House bill of 15, whatever it is, 1553. Okay. So we voted on it and we passed it. Then we go forward. The next page after that is what was in that we voted on at the time. Now I'm sure that this packet, Senate Bill 1547, the bill by Jackson, that went in, this one we voted on, and it adds language more than what's in that what we voted on. And then it goes all the way through it. And then we get back to the charter. That's on, and that's if you go back to where it says C11. Somebody get to where you get C11? What that is, that was what?
Sorry, Bill, where you say you're at now?
C11.
See what,
C11. See it right there?
upper right corner.
C11. Basically, this was the old charter, what it was, what we voted on. And basically it says, calls out the department heads, who they are, what they do. And you read to the last, Public Works Director, Fire Chief, and it refers to everybody as department head. And then, the new charter is the last 5 pages right here, and it took all that out, but now it says we don't have department heads anymore. So all departments got to be administered by an officer appointed by and subject to the direction of the mayor and board until removed from office for cause or resignation. So why was the department heads all took out? Why that happened? Oh, you know why that happened?
What's your specific question?
Why was the department heads took out and changed the charter, and we changed it to where it took the department heads out, and basically said all departments shall be administered by an officer appointed by and subject to the direction of the mayor and board until removed from office for a cause of resignation. So they don't have it. You don't have department heads anymore in the new charter. Why do we do that?
I don't believe that anyone has ever stated that we don't no longer have department heads. But that'll be a question for the General Assembly, the governor, and impasse.
That's the whole point I'm asking is, if we voted on 2 resolutions, why was this language added to it and what went up there? We didn't vote on it, but we voted on it to come back. Now, I will say, and it come back, it was in that packet, and all that stuff that got voted on up there, we passed it. But the 2 resolutions we passed was those 2 resolutions about somebody living outside the city for department head and the mayor could vote on it. But then all kind of language got changed after that.
You also received an email from the mayor that came from Senator Jackson's office on March 2nd with a copy of the charter in draft form. And his email stated, everything looks good to me, but I wanted to make sure that the board members can review the draft and let me know if you don't agree with any of the changes. Respectfully, Jeff Briggs.
So what we're saying is that we voted on that, but they made changes when they got up there to the draft. Who made those changes to the draft?
I can't speak to what you're looking at. I don't have a copy. This was thrown on.
This is the draft right here in that bill. That's what we did. We had the board, this copy of the draft.
So your question is, why did the General Assembly vote on the charter?
No, my question is, why was the language added to it other than what we voted on those 2 resolutions?
That'd be a question for impasse and the General Assembly.
So they put that in there?
That's correct. I don't set the charter, if that's what your direct question is.
I didn't say that. I said, I just want to know, so you're saying that MTAS and the senator put that language in that bill?
I don't know who put specific what on it.
But then when it come back, it had that language in it because, quite frankly, we voted on it. Because we voted on that same language in that bill, exactly what it is.
If you voted on it, what's the question?
My question is, if they changed it again, then why did they take it out but took the department heads? That's what I'm asking. Why would the senator and why would MTAS take out the department heads in our charter?
Why are you asking me?
I said I'm asking who. If they did, I need to ask them why they took it out. Is that what you're asking me? I need to ask them why that come out there.
I think it'd be an appropriate party for you to ask.
Okay, I will. We'll ask a lot more than that.
Can we just do a charter change and put it back?
Huh?
Can we just put it back?
That's beside the point. The point I'm here right here. If we voted on 2 things, we did it. Evidently, we got sent an email to look at that was this acceptable to us. I don't know if I got the email or not. I went back, I've dug way back. I went back to 22 on all this stuff. And evidently, I've checked my history of emails. I don't know why I got it, hadn't got. But I do know that we did vote, and that's a fact, on April 24, 2023, exactly what was in that charter change we voted on. And quite frankly, which I've said several times, is evidently we don't read these packets enough to understand what got voted on and what was said.
Evidently. In case you don't know how legislation process works, when you send a charter up, the General Assembly can completely rewrite it. Or they can deny to make a change, period.
I totally understand that. I totally understand that. I totally understand that.
And why do you keep asking this question?
My question is, I want to know who changed it. So you tell me, talk to Senator Jackson, he can tell me who changed it.
The only people that can vote for a charter is the city board and the General Assembly. That's it.
That's right. And we voted on it, but evidently we didn't know what we voted on.
If you're this confused at this point, then yes.
We're going to find out why we voted on it. We're going to find out why it got changed. And it may take us going to court, getting a lawyer and finding out. I don't know what I'm going to do, but we're going to find out who changed it. I'm going to talk to Senator Jackson. I'm going to find out. We're going to go back to MTAS. But now, if we got some email, I need a copy of that email you said you got, you send it to me at gordon@woodmachine.com. I'm gonna look at it, but I'm also gonna talk to him, because when we vote on a charter change, I expect to see the language we voted on to be in there and some other mumbo jumbo put in it besides what we voted on. Now, if that's the case, we don't know what we're voting on, and a charter change that gets made, it's gonna come back with something else in it. Now, that's what upsets me, is what it does. That's what upsets me. So if the Senate changed it, and they can change anything they want to, then why in the crap did we even send it up there to begin with? We didn't have to, we just voted on right here and done it. They gonna do that right there? They don't run this city. MTS don't run this city. They make recommendations. If they made that change right there, he should have told us. And we should have got told in a board meeting they made that change. But we didn't. They put it in the minutes, in the resolution, we voted on it. And quite frankly, I didn't read the damn thing, but I read it, I never voted for it. Matter of fact, I don't think I even voted for it anyway. But I will find out. Thank you very much.
I got something. July 17th.
And I apologize asking you, Cody. I wanted Jeff to hear. I want to ask Jeff a question, not you. That's who I want to talk to, okay? He's not here tonight, so I'll have to ask you.
I'm gonna ask Gabe to look if this is it. Is this it?
1553.
And it's got that section 13. Okay. Isn't that what we're looking at in the paper?
First time was 11. Did you want to see 13?
Looks like we got one on July the 17th.
It's the 23 or 22?
Let's say substitute. Okay. Substituted for Senate Bill 3519.
I will resend this, Cody, to you, if you want to resend it out to everybody, that way I'm not sending it to everybody.
And what's that?
The bill, bill and everybody that was copied on it.
And I'm, as we speak, forwarding the email from March.
Oh, you found it on yours too?
The one that was sent to the board on March 20, or from Senator Jackson's office, March 2nd of 2023.
But we didn't, what did it say? Say, do we agree with it all? We all voted to agree with it.
I don't have the.
But we didn't know, we didn't know any additions.
Huh? We have a copy.
I'm sure we do. Yeah, I'm sure we got it, didn't we?
I got every email I ever got in my life, so I'm fine. Ain't that right?
I was actually trying to find it, I couldn't find my email, but that don't mean nothing. I got thousands of emails.
Everybody should have a copy at this point.
So my question to you is, what you reading out there is what he sent back to us?
I can't say if anybody else got it, even though they're on the email list, but I do have a copy of it.
So my question is, who sent it to you?
From Jeff Briggs.
Well, I want to know. So Jeff sent it to you.
Well, that's what this email says.
You know, what he's trying to say, what Cody said was that he sent it back and said, this is what we want, and Jeff sent it around to all of us.
And this is the city charter. I'm not conferring with Dave, I'm just having him look.
Based on the context of that, it says from Jeff. To all of us.
And this one is from today, from Jeff. Please read the email below from Senator Jackson's office.
Go all the way down to Senator Jackson forwarded to me.
It came from Lynette Moore at capital.tennessee.gov. Lynette Moore. From Senator.
Is that the same bill they voted on?
I can't answer that because at the top it says draft. So how it played out in between the draft and that. But
My question is, who prepared that draft?
I can't answer that.
I know it. That's what I want to know. I want who prepared that draft too. I want to know. Did they prepare it, or did we send the draft up there and he sent it back to us and this is what you want?
I think that's the only department.
Send that to me, please.
That's what Cody just sent.
Okay, that's what I want. I'll talk to Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, call him.
Anybody else on the board want to discuss what Gordon is talking about? Okay.
But I've got one more thing I want to do, unfinished business, I guess. We're gonna have room for unfinished business. I'll make it quick. I brought up the last time we met about a hiring freeze. The reason we're meeting next week, the mayor said we hired 17 people since, or something like that, since he had been mayor, and that he warned us against recurring expenses. So, what I'm proposing is a hiring freeze. If somebody quits, retires, gets fired, whatever, dies, whatever it is, we don't replace that person because we need to trim the fat. The only way that we replace that person is if they are deemed essential to that department. And the department head comes before this board and tells us why that person can't be moved over, moved up, whatever, without hiring another one. And I'd like to make that into a motion.
I'll second that.
Mallory, do you have Tim's motion?
You can only replace an employee if they are deemed essential, and the department head has to present it before the board.
If they're deemed essential, then we'll consider it. But just as far as, the mayor said that he said the board did it. So I'm just saying, if the board did something, if we done something wrong in the past, doesn't mean we should keep doing wrong in the future. I'm not saying let anybody go, I'm not saying anything like that, but we need to trim the fat. That's why we're in the position we're in next week. So I'm just saying, If it's somebody that is essential, then the department head can come and tell us why it's essential, why it can't be filled by somebody else, lateral, move them up, whatever.
Is that every department or just general fund?
That's every department.
Is this a hiring freeze? Or just not hiring anybody else in the future? Is this a freeze is what I'm asking?
It's a freeze.
Okay.
And not hire anybody else in the future.
I'm not saying forever.
Unless you deem it's deemed necessary.
Unless it's deemed necessary. At least until the next year when we do this budget again, because it's a mess. And that's why it's a mess.
It's a mess.
And that's why it's a mess.
I have a question for that. Are you willing to let us answer that Monday versus tonight?
Sure.
So are you asking him to rescind that motion and then discuss it Monday night? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
That's why we're gonna be here next Monday, is that very reason.
I understand that, but
When we spent that Biden money, when we took out that rainy day fund and spent that Biden money, it was all great that year with the Biden money, but it's bit us in the butt since then. And that's where we're at now. And that's why we're having to meet for 4 months to try to get this budget done. That's a recurring expense. This goes on and on and on.
I'm not denying that, but I almost want to talk to the department heads to see. Maybe we just go for the vote. I'm not going to ask you the same. I see what you're saying. I'm not denying it. I see what you're saying.
That or you'll be fighting the same thing again next year and the next year. Because the government here in this city has outgrown its tax base. It's outgrown the people. This government right here, that we're sitting here, now we're supposed to be stewards of the taxpayers' money. But we keep asking them for more and more when we can't afford it.
Mr. Rose, does that include the position that it closes tomorrow as the CSR?
No, go ahead with that, go ahead with your right away, but after that, hire from, move your positions, lateral move your positions up, whatever. Unless an essential person. If it's an essential person, I get it, but come to us and tell us why it's an essential person.
My question would be, who has anybody that's not essential?
You don't think we have anybody that's not essential?
And why leave them there? Why leave them there now if they're not essential?
You want to make a motion to get rid of some of them?
I'm asking if they got them.
Well, they're all going to tell you they're all essential.
So you tell me they're not telling the truth?
I'm telling you, do you think they're all essential?
I'm asking you a question.
I don't think they're all essential, do you?
I'm asking the department heads. They should know. I don't know. I'm not working there.
You've been one.
I have been. And mine were essential when I was there.
Every
Yes,
one of
sir.
them.
Yes, sir.
Every one of them.
Yes, sir.
Butler, have you ever heard of Butler, Pennsylvania?
I don't live there, no.
Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Well, I'm just asking. It's a city that's bigger than Lexington. Let me see here. A city of 13,000 people in 2 years ago. And I'm not picking on the police department. I'm saying all departments. They have a 24-hour-day department. They have 20 officers. We have 31. And I'm not saying just the police department. I'm saying every department. If I could find out what the public works were, the gas, water, whatever, I'm saying, yeah, I think we're overloaded at the top.
Again, I asked the department heads, do you have anybody with you now that you deem non-essential? Do you, Brad?
All of ours are essential.
Casey, do you?
All of mine are essential.
Did you expect any different?
And Cody, do you?
I'd like for somebody to tell me which one of
Cody,
my
do you?
employees ain't essential. That's what I
all my employees are essential.
That's all I want to know.
How many employees did you have in City Hall 3 years ago?
Same number I have today.
I don't
The
think
same
so.
number we've had
I don't think
for
so.
30 years.
All right, 4 years ago, let's go forward, but I don't think it's been that long.
The same number.
Didn't do it. I won't call names, but you did. We just keep growing and growing, and here we are.
Which position did I have?
You had the one right there when you walk into the right. Retired. How many's been moved up front since that time?
One retired, and we fill her place.
Okay. So there should be 3 girls up front, right?
That's how many's up front.
And one moved over to the side. Listen.
It's the same number.